Our next guest is here. He's late. He'll tell us why he's late. Senator Dan Maanzo is a senator for Makueni County. Yeah. No, he's a senator from Makueni County.
From.
These senators have started coming with their own issues now. The definition of
grammar.
Senator, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah.
My apologies. I had many things to do in the morning.
That's not our problem.
But I'm happy. I finally got here. I also assumed the time you drive here is, early in the morning you come faster than when it's 9 o'clock. So my apologies.
Not accepted, but we shall move on. Karibu though. It's good to have you back here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
CT says hi. He's not around, but he left us with a proverb. But before the proverb, you talk. You are a politician.
Yes.
You are constantly on the phone. Someone has called you, they are talking, or you need to call somebody.
Yes.
Somebody has called you, you need to coordinate. So you want to make sure that you are constantly able to communicate.
That's right.
Yes. So the people who work with you, let's say your PA, your assistants, your researchers, also need to be able to communicate because they are talking to many people across Makueni County, across the country, so they can bring information to you.
That's true.
You have to make sure that those people are also able to call without saying insufficient funds.
That's right.
Safaricom came up with a package, and they called it the all-in-one.
Oh my goodness.
Package, because they noticed that sometimes Senator Maanzo's PA would be calling the senator and briefing the senator on something, an assignment that he had been given to do, and he's reporting back, and then it's like, Kango Konye. Because Imeisha.
That's right.
And then he has to go and buy, new airtime, and then now call you, and then we continue the conversation. By the time he's trying to call you back, he finds you have been called by somebody else.
Yes.
So,
or I'm already in session.
Or you're
There
already
you
in
go.
session.
Back to session.
Yes.
So the all-in-one package says, if you buy this package for a month, 30 days, you get airtime. That's calling minutes. You get SMSs. You get data. And you get WhatsApp for free.
Wow.
And it ranges from 500. 500 gives you a different package. 1,000 different package. For example, 2,000.
Yes.
2,000 gives you 1,000 minutes of call time.
Oh my goodness.
2,000 SMSs. 17 GB of data. And free WhatsApp. And it's valid for 30 days.
Oh, the CEO of Safaricom is very brilliant. He went to school with me.
That's why he's brilliant.
He had to land somewhere. Okay.
You brilliant people. Very good. Yeah. So let me give you the day's proverb. And the proverbs this week are from Senegal.
Senegal?
Yes. Today's proverb. If you speak to him who understands you. If you speak to him who understands you. What's your interpretation of that proverb?
Meaning, if the person doesn't understand you, don't bother speaking to them. You may be disappointed, or it may end up in a quarrel. So it's a good proverb. You learn something from it. Maybe for politicians, we should shut up to those who don't want to speak to us. Maybe. Maybe that's why Gachagua is not talking to Ruto.
It's on understanding.
Somebody's not understanding something.
So stop speaking.
So the first thing is just, and I haven't been speaking for quite a while.
Yeah.
You see, even Gachagua has been removed from WhatsApp. It started from silence.
He has been lefted from a WhatsApp group.
And now when you are removed from no communication at all, even when the president leaves the country, he doesn't say. So the deputy doesn't know he's already left.
Wait. It's a bad situation to be in, isn't it?
Yeah, and that proverb serves it right.
We hear from the grapevine that the Senate is facing a biting cash crunch.
A serious one.
What's the issue?
Devolution is very expensive. And you see, I'll give you an example, like the Committee of Agriculture has a lot of bills. And you see, when you do public participation, that's where many bills fail. Then you are unable to sample the country sufficiently. And you need also to do participation with the governance. You need to do with COG. then you find as a committee you are not allocated enough money to sample out the country sufficiently. And probably what will be fair, in the minimum, if you are doing public participation, it must be 25 counties at least. They will give you a yes or a no, and it must be in different parts of the regions of the country. So that has not happened over quite a while. And that's why when a lot of our bills, when they migrate to the National Assembly, they crash there. There will be so many issues be raised. Oh, you mean there is this bill? We also grow dengue. We never saw you people. There will be all manner of things. And if you are dealing with cotton, the same thing. If you are dealing with fishing, the same thing. So the committees have not, when you do the share of National Assembly and Senate, when they get their budget and you share out, then you find the work for Senate is so loading. It's big time, and then we once in a year do Senate machinani. Like this year, by now we should have already gone to Busia, but it was postponed to end of October to allow the government to look for funds to be able to do that.
What does this mean that you don't have money?
It's a budget which has been reduced,
Okay.
and not only us. You saw a bill come back from the president, Division of Revenue Bill, coming back to Senate with the direction that now that finance bill never was, that you reduce the money for development for the counties. I mean, it has never happened like that. That's an illegality in itself.
So what you're facing, is it a reduction in budget, or is it no money coming to the Senate? What are we dealing with here? Because see, a cash crunch is where you are supposed to be getting 100 shillings as budgeted, but you don't have the 100 shillings. Or are you saying that we would have wanted to have 100 shillings, but the budget came at 50? What are we dealing with?
Both of them have happened. You have a proposed budget, which Treasury has no money for. In fact, I've been in Parliament for many years. For the first time in the last 2 years, have activities for Parliament in total delayed, including delay of salaries. I've never seen it, including delay of payment of our staff. It has never happened, all the years Justin Muturi was Speaker or during those other regimes. But right now, Parliament is the last place to squeeze. Because if Treasury squeezes Parliament can squeeze back. But it's unable to fight back. You go to Treasury, Honorable Badi will tell you, I don't have money. So although you have a budget, and other than reducing, and it makes it very difficult, to legislate, and more important, for devolution. I was very surprised when you got a proposal to reduce money for development. It must always be added or increased for counties. And that is yet to be sorted out because that Division of Revenue Bill has not, come to final conclusion. Really, as a senator, can you vote to reduce the money in your account? I think that bill must fail because if you reduce money in your account, then it means wind up Senate. There's no need to have Senate. Close it down.
Let me ask you, Senator. Yes. So if you look at reduced funding, walk us through some of the things that means. If there's reduced funding, if there's a cut, what does it mean that Senate now is no longer able to do?
It means when making our law and through the committees, it means the work of the committees is reduced. And I've given you a very good example of public participation. Every single committee has to go back to public on any legislative proposal, including us. When you are in, I said, the Committee of Agriculture, it must sample out the country properly. And you know what? That's why we went very wrong with the law of the levies. The house levies. You see, we never went for public participation. We asked for it. It was overruled, and mainly because of budgetary constraint and time framework. The way the president needed that bill urgent on his desk for signature, and that's why it's an illegal bill. We are already arguing it in court. The judges are yet to decide. But we never went for public participation. If you don't do public participation, you have not made law under the Constitution. Even if National Assembly does public participation, we must also do public participation when the bills come to Senate. And the bills which come to Senate deal with the devolution. And therefore, you must reach the counties. You must find out in Mombasa how much land does the government have to build the housing. What is there in Garissa? What is there in Mandera? What is there in Kisumu? And in fact, from the feedback we get from senators who come from those areas, really there is no such land. And the little available for government, if you build on it a private house, haven't you not allocated this land to a private person? All that feedback we never did. And the most unfortunate thing, about the role of Senate. So I think the government must not only just allocate budget, but also go on to actualize it. And that's not only happening to Senate, it is happening to every ministry. If you visit different ministries, they are unable to function. So President Ruto has a closely down government. It is not that Kenya doesn't have money.
Okay.
Kenya has a lot of money.
So the budget was readjusted to come back to the realities, right?
Yes, it was.
And the realities were what Kenyans are able to give in terms of tax.
Yes.
True?
Yes.
Because that's what Kenyan said. Kenyan said, we reject the finance bill. We are not able to raise an extra 300 billion shillings.
Yes.
That was the message from Kenyans.
That's right.
So the executive went back to Parliament and said, Kenyans are not able to raise the 300 extra billion, so let's readjust our budget.
No, that's not what happened.
What happened?
Finance Bill 2024 was declined by Kenyans. And therefore, they went back to Finance Bill 2023,
yes,
which covered quite a bit.
Minus
the problem there, minus all this new proposal.
Yes.
Even if you make the new proposal, and even if you raise money from Kenyans, and you cannot manage the money, you get all of it stolen. You get all of it reallocated to, projects where people are just harvesting the money, where a short job is done, where the bill of quantities is not followed. If you are making roads, the biggest problem has been running government. You've got the president running around the country unnecessarily. It is very expensive to move the president. You've got the president traveling abroad unnecessarily with so many people who have no role in whatever they are going to do. In fact, it's a shame even to those countries. For example, when they went to America, what did America need really to do anything to us or to get any message from us? It needed the president, probably his wife, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, and our office in Washington, D.C. What are the rest of the people for?
The delegation that's currently in New York with the president.
Yes.
Do they all need to be there, including your
No, they don't.
Your colleague, Senator?
No, they should not be in the U.S. They're just wasting the Senate's money, the public money, for something you have not gone to achieve anything.
So
in fact, in Unga, the president alone is enough. You don't need anybody else. Nobody else is going to talk other than the president. These other sideshow meetings, it must be, our representation in Washington, in America, is enough. The ambassador is enough to do all that.
And we have two. One the ambassador to the UN,
United Nations.
The other ambassador in America.
And they're more than enough. All these other people traveling there, that money should have been reallocated to do other things in the country, to do the roads, to do the legislative proposals and things like that. But there is a total disorganization in the government.
I was leading on to something with the earlier conversation, so let me bring it back. Okay, so there was a supplementary budget that went to Parliament, right, in July.
July, yes.
Which was to face the reality that with no Finance Act of 2024, therefore the proposal to raise an extra 300 billion shillings or thereabouts has been rejected. We revert to last year's capacity. And the reality is that we were only able to raise 2.3 trillion shillings from ordinary taxes last year. Okay. And so let's readjust our budget. And that's what now you're operating with. But what you're saying and what we are hearing from others is that the National Treasury is not liquid enough to send money to all these required purposes.
It is in a liquid and part of it is there must be a lot of
They are not able to send money to Parliament so that it can do its job.
Because that's why all the money to the executive.
There is not enough money to send to counties. And you've also said if you go to some of these ministries and departments and agencies, you will find that they have not received money that they ought to have received now to start running some operations, right?
That's right.
Okay. Which means that our reality today is that we are not able to adequately finance operations of government with the taxes that we are collecting. That's our reality.
That's our reality, but it's only mismanagement of the monies we have and the monies we have borrowed, and we continue borrowing every other day. If we don't waste the money with unnecessary things, then the necessary things will be covered sufficiently, and we'll be able to cut ourselves to our requirements. There is a serious wastage in government. That's where it begins. There is serious corruption in government. As the President Uhuru admitted during his time, he said that we lose 2 billion shillings into corruption every day. So if you are losing that amount of money and you are raising, like we have raised a lot of money with the house levies, where is the money? You have not seen any houses being constructed anywhere. The money used to go and lodge a road in Muranga, which was being relaunched. The money used just that day for setup was enough to grade that road to a very good standard. So they launched it and they never did anything to it. The so-called procurement, is all thuggery. You procure for somebody you have already known, and the people who do the procurement, they already know who they are going to give the business. So every other person being asked to compete is wasting time. And then instead of going by the BQ, you end up presenting to Kenyans as something weaker than the BQ. But the biggest place where we are losing money and we should save, it is the office of the president. Moving the president around is a very expensive affair. So the president should only move when the president should only move when we have when it is absolutely necessary. He should sit in the office and work.
Who should make sure that such things don't happen?
It is the House.
Parliament.
You
have been in the National Assembly for many years, more than a term.
Yes.
And now you're in the Senate.
Yes.
You carry the cross, my friend.
We have not refused to carry the cross.
My brother, let me tell you.
What has happened is this, just like the proverb.
We are bringing the whips.
You better do.
And the spear. You are hanging on the cross this morning.
That is true.
So Parliament has failed
completely
in its job of oversighting the executive.
Completely.
And now Parliament is now finally bearing the brunt. Your staff are not getting paid on time.
Yes.
That should happen. That should continue. That should continue. Ili iwe funzo.
Even as we look at some of these matters and we talk about devolution, is it deliberate what we see? And I think you've given some, pointing to that in some way. But would you say that it is a direct attack on devolution if we see that the very tenets of devolution, a Senate, a county government, which are the two places where there is lack of funds, where there is, Treasury has not sent funds to these two. We don't hear cries coming from the National Assembly. We hear cries coming from from governors, from counties, and we hear it from Senate. Why would that be? Because these are two implementers of devolution. Why would we see that there would be that, if not for an attack on devolution?
Well, I think first of all, going back to history, President Ruto never believed in the current constitution. He opposed it. He didn't see anything good in it, and that's where devolution was in. Devolution wasn't frustrated that much by President Kenyatta. He came and promised that he's going to support devolution. In fact, he made a promise that the county's money will arrive in time. Right now, for 4 months, the counties have no money. What the governors have to do to pay salaries, they borrow from a bank. They take an overdraft, which means then they are going to lose more money. Projects in the country have delayed, which means they are going to cost more. Like Thwake Dam, in Makueni. It means the more you delay, if you don't fund it in time, you delay it, then it means the contractor, you'll have to reorganize, and revalue.
And penalize you.
And penalize you. And then it means when you look at several projects in the country, you still lose more money out of those, that disorganization. And therefore, I think the president should take devolution seriously. Honorable Bandi is yet to lose more weight. He'll have now to look for another tailor because the suits won't fit him anymore. There is a lot of seepage in my I believe there's a lot of seepage. KRA collects a lot of money, a lot of it is lost in cash. It doesn't end up in treasury. There's also a lot of money being lost in cash in treasury. And the so-called, is a secret budget or
confidential
budget. I think this is a time it should be disclosed. And there's a lot of it, in NSIS, in the president's office. The deputy, I'm sure he is not getting a coin. That's why he's moving sometimes as to do a ticket to KQ by himself and carry his bag because he cannot even go with his assistants. And you see, all those budgets should be withdrawn and put together. And the Treasury should be very serious on the management of the funds we have, because I still believe they are largely being mismanaged. When it comes to devolution itself, so from the national government, there is a problem. From Parliament itself, there is a problem. You have such a demand of dealing with the counties. As I told you, every year we have to do a Senate machinani. And we have some pendy bills. And I think all the monies from Treasury to Parliament should come in good time so that Parliament programs do not delay. Although, in my opinion, Parliament is in the case serving Kenyans as it should be. Instead of concentrating on a serious legislative agenda, or making sure that the legislative process follows the constitution. An important aspect like public participation, which is usually a sham, or just a little bit of a show, is never real, or whatever information you have collected from people. And I believe there are many brilliant Kenyans who didn't go to politics. There are experts in finance, there are experts in different fields. But when they give feedback to the House, that feedback is not processed at all. It's not accommodated in the amendment. In fact, we are just doing public participation simply because it is a requirement of the Constitution. But we do not go to exact requirements. So we end up with a law which is a sham. Now, instead of doing that, we are concentrating on raising signatures to send Rigathi home. I think it's a way of diverting attention of the real issues of the country, of the big-time deals, the Adani deals of the airport and the power stations and all that, whereby we have not done even proper. We have not looked into details. We have not gone to know who is Adani and what are his companies. How bankrupt are they? Probably this is a bankrupt fellow who is coming to loot from us. And then we don't do due diligence. We are just there. And this is what Parliament should be doing. Then the whole matter, some bad law was passed that now Cabinet can now represent the people and allow such things to happen. That law is an illegality, as I told you. And because the Parliament has allowed itself and its brains to be deleted, and they are only following one brain of William Samoei Ruto. So you can imagine how dangerous that is. That was not the intention of Kenyans, of electing 67 senators and all these almost 400 members of parliament, so that they can put their brains together and can be firm and come up with something and systems which can help the country. So the biggest problem is compromise. We are as compromised as Balaam. There was a man who was a man of God. He could bless and he could curse. And then he got compromised by a king. And even after taking a bribe from the king and was stopped on the way, he still came back to the king and told him, I will tell you how we will destroy the Israelites. We will teach them bad ways. We will give them sacrifice, meat from the sacrifices of idols. And God will be so annoyed with them, he will destroy them. But of course, Balaam could not think for God. You can see we are trying to legislate God. You are bringing a bill in Parliament to legislate how God works. It can't work. Everything has been given, as to how to identify a cult. If it is Shakahola, the photographs we have are those pastors of Shakahola praying for President Ruto to win an election. And then, where was the intelligence? What does the intelligence do in this country other than torture those they imagine want to overthrow the government? You can see the newspapers are saying, DPL is to face arrest. It's nothing like a coup in the country. I don't know what has happened to the security systems in this country. They must read a book called The Leaderless Revolution, which was written in 2014 in UK. The world has changed. A phone is working more than a gun. And the young people are in another world. They are not in the world of Ruto.
They came out, those young people, in June and July, and they were expressing displeasure with their governors on many ways. Right? The trigger, of course, was the proposals for new taxation in the finance bill. But it went deeper than that. And the whole message was that we don't feel that this government is serving us, that the leaders are responsive to our needs, that are going to work every morning to address the needs of Kenyans. One of the institutions that they were really, really unhappy with is the institution of Parliament.
Correct.
Collectively.
Yes.
It's not just this Parliament. It's not just the 1 year of the 13th Parliament. It is the observation of what has happened in parliaments before. Even the 12th Parliament. There were issues where people would say, this 12th Parliament is serving Uhuru Kenyatta and his wishes. This 11th Parliament is serving Uhuru and Ruto and their wishes, not the wishes of Kenyans. This 13th Parliament is serving William Ruto and his wishes. How do we save ourselves from getting this kind of leadership?
First and foremost, I want to say there's a lot of hope in Kenya. And when Parliament was invaded, something everybody never thought would happen, it meant that Kenyans have rejected Parliament. That is the truth. It means Parliament has been overthrown by Kenyans. And although the Constitution requires elections every 5 years, it means now we are serving, although Kenyans are quiet, we are serving without the authority of Kenyans, because the Constitution gives the supreme power to the people. And they came to the House and pronounced themselves. And therefore, what has been happening is almost every single member of Parliament is behaving like Balaam. He's compromised, or has agreed to be compromised.
They're telling the king how to destroy Kenyans.
Yes, they're telling the king. They are giving ways, on how Kenyans should be destroyed. And I think what every young person should do, everybody who has turned 18 should apply for an identity card. And as soon as, I believe there will soon be going to be IBC. You can see deliberately there is no IBC. Even for members of Parliament who have passed on, there are people who are unrepresented. The MCS who have passed on, there are people who are unrepresented. You can imagine how unconstitutional that is. But somebody somewhere does not want us to have IBC. They want to keep on going around in circles to make sure there's no IBC absolutely. And it's very bad. So I really want to encourage young people, because soon IBC is going to operate, though it will have very limited time. With the time registration of voters is called for, every single Kenyan who is not registered as a voter should register. 8 million Kenyans or so did not vote. This time around, they should be so annoyed to vote. And I also want to encourage everybody who thinks they can change Kenya, including the Gen Zs, to stand for election. It doesn't matter whether you have money or no money. Kenyans are no longer going to be bribed, because that's what happens. We have created a culture of bribing the voters, so that corruption begins from the voting, from the voters to each one of us. And therefore, if we do that, then we are going to have a Kenya which is, for all of us, and a Kenya where we have participated in forming government. And therefore, Parliament and our Constitution should be majority and minority. Every single member of Parliament is supposed to check the government. But now, the so-called majority, or a makeshift majority, has declared itself, the executive. So you have Parliament which is compromised by executive. And when you have Parliament which is working for the executive, then it means the only hope of Kenyans is judiciary. Then now when judiciary get their security withdrawn, they have gone for training, as if they never got trained, then it means that particular judge is going to be scared. And I wonder, when we went to court as the Law Society of Kenya, the judge recused himself and said, while I send this matter to the Chief Justice for a 3-judge bench to be constituted, I recuse myself and I should not be one of those judges. I believe it is the intimidation which has happened to that particular judge.
So are we saying essentially that if the arms of government are not functioning in the manner in which they ought to, then it's necessary for us to have a new look at things? Would that point to what you're saying now, that you're not unsatisfied with the status quo, then people who are in the majority today should actually look at what is happening and use the power of their vote to change things?
And if they did that, the government, there will be no corruption, and the government and the laws which will pass will not be challenged in the court, and the government will properly be checked and it will work. Because it means one of the tools we have is to impeach the president. And the president must toe the line or get impeached. But when you have compromised the members of parliament, having become Balaams, all of them, then the Kenyans are not be served. And that's why we want Kenyans to elect people of integrity, people they know they will not be compromised. I want to say one, Omutata has not been compromised at all and has rejected. He was very lucky, he was almost kidnapped. And those who have been kidnapped have not been seen for months. So I would imagine Omutata will now be missing for months. Although they are no longer taking those who died to River Yala, they are being found in the quarries or never found at all. We haven't discovered what is the new river which is being used. Now that the president promised that Yala was not going to be again.
It's not going to be
so
Yala.
We don't know which other river now they have turned to. Because some people have gone missing completely. And their families are desperate and they are trying their level best. These are people who have shown a strong stand against corruption, strong stand against bad governance, like the way Omutata did. And because he had been in a church where he had put his phone on flight mode, and then heavy rains came. And because he had an appointment in Nairobi and decided to leave at night, and the latest location on his phone was showing his house. So they went to kidnap him. And I want to say Omutata stood very strong. Even the other day in the House, he said, no, we were voting for a bill. He said, and the number was only one. And a member changed their mind and blamed him. And Omutata said, I am not part of any scam. And please draw the bars, I walk out of this House. We want members of parliament like Omutata. And I can assure you, if we had just 100 Omutatas, then the country would be different. Probably
Why can't you be the second Omutata?
Well, we work with him.
Omutata is only a first-term member of parliament. You are how term? Fourth now?
You know, as a lawyer, we always work in Omutata. If you see in the matter yesterday in court, he was a petitioner. I was a petitioner too. Because, he's not a lawyer like myself, but we work together. Although he has read the law very well.
That's on the professional side.
Yes.
Right?
So we work together.
On the representation side, on the oversight side, and the legislation side.
We work together.
Can Dan Maanzo say that he is as strong and steadfast?
You see, I don't want to blow my trumpet.
Have you been compromised?
Never. I will never allow myself to be compromised. And I will always vote. If it's a no, I will not change that one vote to give the government advantage when it's not supposed to be.
Right now we are seeing Parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate both jumping over each other, trying to investigate this Adani issue. Why are we having two separate investigations on Adani? We had two separate investigations on COVID-19. None of the two investigations in the National Assembly or the Senate led to anything. This one on Adani, are we just seeing the same, a repeat of the same? Is this an opportunity by individual members using committee to negotiate for something?
Well, I want to say that when it is a devolved matter, honestly, it should be dealt with by the Senate. For example, if it is agriculture, the work of National Assembly is to allocate money to the Ministry of Agriculture to implement the agriculture policy in the country. The real work, and actually agriculture and health have never been devolved. So the real work should be done by the Senate. And if there is any investigation on a devolved function like it did with agriculture, but you saw that when Agriculture Committee was investigating, the National Assembly immediately moved, although the Constitution and the standing order say that all members are representatives of the people, and any person can petition any of the House of Parliament on a matter of public interest. So sometimes the petitioners petition on a matter which is devolved of the National Assembly. Ordinarily, they should be guided, but the National Assembly then will take that role and they will begin dealing with the matter. And then at the same time, you find the Senate had also constituted itself to deal with that particular matter. So I think we have to get serious with devolution. And the two speakers are supposed to compare notes according to the Supreme Court's opinion and reallocate these matters accordingly, Article 113 and 114 of the Constitution.
So now that transport is not a devolved matter, the Senate should cease investigating Adani.
It should, but ordinarily, if a Kenyan had, if it has an element of devolution, then there should be a joint committee. There should be a joint committee. You can always form a committee of both houses, like they do when passing the person to be in charge of security, like the Inspector General. The two committees work together, and the two houses debated the report, because that's a matter according to the Act. There is the Act of Parliament dealing with security says Parliament will appoint. Then it means that person has to be vetted by the two houses. Some acts are specific. They say the National Assembly will do. So it also goes to the Acts of Parliament, but I think these are things we should be looking to make sure now devolution is implemented properly. There is no wastage of money by two committees doing the same thing. And as you say, ending up with no answer. You can see what happened finally to the fake fertilizer issue.
It dies like that.
It dies, and it doesn't come back into the public arena, and nobody brings it up, and nobody wants to prosecute it.
Ordinarily, Parliament now gives recommendation for prosecution to either ESCC or DCI, and then the person with the final power is the DPP. So the DPP can decide, even if you are guilty, not to prosecute you. Or when prosecution has been started on you, to end and only prosecute. That is a power given to the DPP by the Constitution. And that's why we need to look at the practicality of the Constitution in the last 10 years. And when the next time we amend the Constitution, what we should be looking at to see how then you can check some of these powers that our Constitution has already given, some of these impracticalities in our Constitution as far as the operation of the two houses is concerned. Otherwise, if the Senate if devolution is not being implemented in Kenya, we have no need there's no need for
the Senate.
Why should we waste Kenyans' monies with a situation which is not working and with a devolution which is not implemented?
Is there a need for Parliament as it's currently constituted? So first of all, you are a lawyer, seasoned lawmaker now, right? Yes. The job of Parliament: representation, legislation, oversight. By and large, because of the wanton corruption that we see, because of the misuse and misappropriation of public funds that we see, because of the started and stalled projects that we see, because of the poor implementation of government projects that we see, oversight part of Parliament, ? True?
True.
By and large, because of the number of cases that have gone to court and have been adjudged that, yes, this law was passed without public participation. This law is unconstitutional. Legislation, ? True?
Correct.
The people of Kenya went to Parliament on the 25th of June and they said issues. Representation, ? Right?
Correct.
Parliament has failed in its 3 core jobs.
True.
We don't need Parliament.
No,
this Parliament,
we don't need it.
This 13th Parliament has failed.
It is doing very little to help Kenyans.
We should therefore find people like you who are seasoned lawyers going to court to say, starve this Parliament of budget. This money should go where it should go.
There's an application in court to dissolve Parliament.
Very good.
But I was telling you
on the issue of gender, can one go to court and say, this dissolve Parliament because it has failed in those 3?
It can do so. That would be forcing an election. You see, the Constitution now says election has to be in 5 years. And that's why I'm challenging Kenyans. In the next cycle of election, please, let's not have this. Parliament is a reflection of the people. Parliament, you look like the person you elected to represent you. You are exactly the same. Because you admired that person, you gave them the vote, and you sent them to Parliament to betray you. It means you have first betrayed yourself. So the next cycle of election, and that's why I'm asking the Gen Zs, now go and demonstrate while registering as a voter.
Right.
Demonstrate while voting. Let us have such huge lines. Let's have every Kenyan coming out to vote. Vote out the wrong members, and you know them.
Yeah.
Vote out the compromised members. You know, anybody who is who that no longer represents you, vote this particular person out.
Very good. The call has been made to you, not just the Gen Zs, but everybody who is 18 and over, or who will be 18 and over by 2027. Senator Dan Maanzo is the senator from Makueni County.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your